Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gardener's Shed podcast. And in this episode today, well, like with anything, we've got a lot to get caught up on. So last week's episode was the guest ep. That went very, very well. It's been a very good performing video, and it was nice to chat with Tom about all things, related to his gardening business. There is more guest eps coming up. I've got one filmed and I've got another one in progress. I think that's going to be a two-parter. It's quite a meaty episode, so I'll probably just drop both episodes of that in one day, opposed to spreading it out over 2 weeks. So yeah, you'll get a bonus. So this episode today, I'm going to carry on the chat as the main subject about Facebook a little bit later on, but we've got a couple of weeks to sort of get caught up on, so I'll chat with you about what's been going on in these past 2 weeks. So, like with anything, let's get on with it then, shall we? So, it's been a busy couple of weeks, if I'm being honest with you, and I feel like I say this, so it's almost at the month end, so I can have a little bit of a chat about how October's gone as well. It's been a very, very good October. I honestly think there is no... When it comes to this industry, yes, hard work. I think there's no... I think luck is just what you bring on yourself, let's just say. But I think in this industry, if you work hard, you do the right sort of work, the right sort of advertising, work for the right customers, I think it does come back to benefit you. I think it does come back to where... basically, you put stuff in, you get stuff out. There was a chap in my local area, and I work for him, so he's one of my commercial clients, and he's a very, very wealthy and very, very successful person. Don't get me wrong, he looks, well dressed, he's got a nice motor, but he's not flash. And we got a little bit of a chat, and he said something as a little bit of a matter of power, a little bit out the blue, a little bit out there. And he actually said to me that treat your business like a fridge. And I looked at him a little bit vague, as I normally do. He says you can't take out of it what you don't put into it. And you know what? It does make sense, and you can't expect to have a successful business if you don't put the time in behind the scenes. You can't expect to have, a smooth running business if you don't, put things into place. Don't get me wrong, I think in this industry there's quick ways to make money. I think you can make money very, very quickly. I think you can make money very, very quickly in this industry. There's chaps out there that just advertise cheap rates and they rack and stack them, so they'll do 10 lawns at 10 quid, front and back. And then, they'll just smash a street off, or, they'll do, afternoon's work, and they'll go away with 100 quid. And to them, they'll be quid, they'll love it. There is quick money in this industry, but to have that where it's dependable and reliable year in, year out, with year in, year growth, you need to put the effort in, you need to put the time in. I'm seeing definitely, the business is growing, the business is going in a direction. One of the sort of the buzzwords that I really, really like is progression, where you're not just staying at the same peg. You can see things are improving, and I like it, I do, even if it's marginal, even if it's just, a percent a week, and it adds up to the end of the year, even if it's just one extra customer, one extra lead, even if it's just 10 minutes off a job or 5 minutes off a job, I think progression and improvements, I think, is so important. Even in the YouTube channel, I don't talk about it too. It's very rare that I'll do a plug, but like and subscribe, guys. It costs nothing, and it genuinely does help the channel. I have noticed growth in the channel lately. I'm changing the format, so I'm trying to put up more gardening videos, more sort of not shorter videos, but I find, people don't need, 20 minutes to explain something that could be done in 5-10 minutes. And I'm a bugger for that. I'm a bugger for over talking. So I'm trying to sort of snip it down and keep it a little bit more shorter and concise. But the podcast is always here as a way to keep that. So if you are interested in that and the van chats and the talking, it's always going to be here for that. So yeah, seeing improvements and seeing growth, it's something that I really, really enjoy, and it's something that it's a big part of what I like. Basically, I think there's nothing worse than doing something or working hard. Don't get me wrong, there's no harm in having a minimal input, good output sort of thing, but I like the fact that we can spend on the business and do this for the business and do that, and then you're sort of seeing or reaping the rewards from it. I really like stuff like that. So as I said, it is hard, and I hate saying it because it's I always think if I can do it, you can do it, but there's always people that are worse off than you. There's always people better off than you. There's always people that would look at my situation and kill for what I've got or what I've achieved, or like I said, there's always some bugger worse off than you. So I think sometimes, yes, it is hard, and it is very, very hard at times, but I think sometimes you need to take a step back and look at the situation and look at it as a whole, basically, because what might be catastrophic now might the next day actually be okay. So the past couple of weeks have gone by very quickly. We're definitely into... So the grass is still growing to an extent. I think the thing that's going to finish it off is not so much the grass stopping. I think obviously the grass is going to stop growing. I think once we have a first frost, that'll just drop straight off. But one of the things I've noticed in before we have the first frost is some of the gardens that I work on are starting to bog up and go back to where they used to be, which is very sort of wet. But everything is still growing, everything is still plodding along and chugging along nicely. One of the things that I tend to do is, you're not misleading people, but you're stating a fact is, when customers come out to have a look at the job or say about the job, I tell them, I say, God, the grass is still growing, grass is still putting on the growth. It's not slowed down yet. Just sort of putting, not people's mind at ease, but you're putting people in the picture, really. I've said this many, many times this season. I've had the customers that last year caused problems this year. I don't know. I know what it is. I think they've had bigger fish to fry, let's just say. But people who caused problems last year, this year, they've been fine. And vice versa. There's been customers this year that never ever caused problems. Suddenly they're causing problems. I think as well, I have had a couple of people that have said to me that this is the last cut. I had a lady, and to be fair on her, she's a really good customer. She causes me no problem. I don't think she's ever caused a problem. But she said to me the other day, she said that this will be the last cut. I said, yeah, I said that's no problem. And she did find me some work, to be fair. And I can't complain at her. She found me some work, but she said this will be the last visit. And she said to me, she says that, it has slowed down, but I would... Basically, there's been something with her pension where... And she did actually tell me this at the start of the season. She had a late start to the season. And she said at the start that she had a problem with her pension. Basically, whatever she should be getting, she's somehow £70 down a week. And, that's the thing. You don't know what situation some people are in, It's easy to say, oh yeah, they did the late cuts or late visits, bad customer. But sometimes people, are struggling basically. But this customer's never, she says to me that her garden is her pride and joy. She's in a little council bungalow, and it is. She said it's her pride and joy. She loves her garden. She loves looking at it and going out in it, and she loves buying plants for it. She enjoys it. She really, really does, and she loves everything about it. But if she hasn't got it, she hasn't got it. So I think sometimes you have to be a little bit flexible. There was a thing somebody said last season. I don't know if it was somebody on YouTube or on Facebook. I think it was, because I remember hearing it as spoken words. But they were saying that one of their gardening customers had cancelled early because a family member will be taking over. And they said in the video, they said that they're good customers, but they're going to cancel because of that. And well, I took it as well. If they're good customers, but they finish the season early, why cancel somebody like that? You just know you're going to get a short season. But this is the thing, everybody runs their business their own way, and that is what it is. So, last couple of weeks I ended up, I'm trying to sort of wind down the spending, but I had to have so I mentioned in the previous video, I think it's coming up, I think it might, you guys are hearing about it now, but it'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. I did a hedge reduction, and the gears inside of one of my hedge trimmers just sheared off inside of it, so I've had to have that replaced. I had a new head put on the old unit, and then I just bought a complete new pair with a new still connected on. So I've got 3 years warranty on this new tool, and I've got a spare hedge trimmer now. So I've pretty much got spares for every single tool. I think it's all very good having good equipment, but I think if that good equipment, and it will break at some point, there's no two ways about it, nothing lasts forever. I think having spares is very, very important. On top of that, I am actually clearing out the container. I'm trying to get rid of some of my... So since swapping over to the Artesia mowers, I've literally not used the still mowers at all. It's very strange. I did nearly 5 years of striped lawns for nearly, I'd say 90% of my customers all had a striped lawn. I swapped to the Artesia. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't say to anybody, look, your lawn cut's going to be different. Nothing. I just swapped over. And nobody is either they're thinking something and they don't want to say something, or they are sort of thinking to themselves, like they're not bothered about it. But nobody is bothered. Nobody has said anything about it at all. And that's with doing a mix of big lawns, small lawns, posh lawns. Nobody's said anything. I'll always shout out good companies. The little Artesia mower has been absolutely cracking. Really good mower. So, like I said, we're on to winter visits now for some people. So there's a chap where I do his lawn. I think that'll be swapping over, and we'll just be on leaves for a couple of visits. And then it'll be a 4 weekly visit instead. I am pretty confident that this winter should be okay. It should be alright. So, yeah, we'll just have to see. I had I'm waiting for my hospital appointment. Well, so I should be having a hernia op at some point during this season. Originally, it's supposed to be before Christmas, but I've not heard anything off the consultant, so I ended up ringing up his secretary, and she's booked me in for an appointment on, I think it's the 12th of December. So obviously, it's... Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be having my hernia up this time of the year, this year, basically. I've got a feeling they might say, it's going to be next year, but like March or April or something, or even later. And if it is the case, then I'll have to get it done the following year in winter, because the hernia is a problem, but it's not a huge problem. It's not really causing me any, touch wood. I'm okay with it. I don't want to go down the route of having, a couple of months off to recover and then missing the start of the season. And as well, I've got big plans for next season. What I want to start doing is, if I can retain the customer base what I've got, I don't even think there's any customers I want to get rid of, to be fair. There's a couple that are like borderline, but you'll always get that, so we'll see. There is a customer I had to get rid of this season. He just got too demanding. I've worked for him for a long time, and I find sometimes when people get older, as in like late 80s, they get very, very sort of... It's not that they're getting confused. I don't want to make him sound mentally and physically iller than he is, but there's been a lot of times this season where you should have been here last week. No, it's not. I do work for his next door neighbour, and I've swapped visits from fortnightly to 4 weekly for this next door neighbour. And considering that was the next door neighbour having that, I think he's took it personally. He keeps asking, you've only been to a neighbour, once this month, what's happened? I said, look, I've got the slot still there for you. And he's one of them where he'll say he wants it fortnightly, then he'll say he wants it for, so in the end I've just had to get rid of him. He's just got very, very demanding. And to the matter of the point, he's been very, very rude about it as well. You should have come last week, you should have come a fortnight ago, you should have called me, all this sort of stuff. One of the things that I try and do, and this is why I have very sort of short shrift with some people over this, is I'm a regular gardener. This is one of the things that I have, when people say to me, I didn't know you were coming, or I forgot to leave a gate because you never text, or I don't send text messages out unless people ask for me to send text messages out. I weigh every single job up, so if that customer says to me, I need to be in, I need to open the gate, or if the gate's padlocked for whatever reason, I'll be honest with you, that's one of my biggest turn-offs with customers, if they have side access but they're the gatekeeper. So if I have to let them know to unlock it, or they have to be in to unlock it, I don't do jobs anymore where you've got to go through people's houses or garages. But if it is that I have to, I don't mind with some people, but I think next season when I do the quoting for new people, one of the things that I'm going to be asking is, have you got side access? And if you say, yeah, I've got a gate, will it be unlocked every single time, or is it locked? Is it kept locked? And if they say, yeah, we lock it, I'll be honest with you, yes, I'll still quote it, but it's just more trouble it's worth, because what ends up happening is somebody will eventually forget, and then what will end up happening is I'll have a missed visit, and it just gets. I've done it a couple of times. Not, I don't think it was this year. It was last year, where this chap, he said it was a lady. He kept leaving the gate locked. I just used to do the front, and I'd bill him. So I'd bill. She said, "You haven't done the back lawn." And to be fair, the front lawn was the bigger lawn, and the front lawn grew quicker than the back. I said, "Well, you knew I was coming. I come every time. I come every 2 weeks, roughly the same time." And like I said, if people need me to remind them, I will. But I'm not there to do that, if you get what I mean. Especially if you've got side access. So, like I said, I don't mind doing it, but I don't want to do it. It's something else that I've got to remember to do. It's something else I've got to. And to be fair, I can automate it. I can get a CRM. I can do something to do it, to organise it. But like I said, it's thinking. I think if it is that you text somebody to leave the gate open, and then whatever happens the next day, you have to cancel or rained off, whatever. I've had it in the past where people have left the gate open and they've rung me up and it's been pouring down with rain, like psychopath weather. Are you coming today? I've left my gate open for you. And it's like, no, I won't be there today. It's like, come on guys, a little bit of common sense, work with me, so to speak. But anyway. So yeah, we replaced the hedge trimmers. I also bought a new chainsaw as well this month. My little cordless one decided to die. No idea why. So I've just replaced it. And again, I got another one who's still connected things. So that's been, 3 years of warranty on both tools now. So I should be, like I said, I should be alright, for 3 years with these tools. I don't use a chainsaw very often, so I just went for just like the middle tier one. I think it's the MSA 200. I didn't go for anything bigger than that because it'd be wasted. It really will. It'd be wasted in, my van. But anyway, it's a pretty good saw, to be fair. I am, if you want to sort of see a little bit more behind the scenes on the Gardener's Shed Pod Facebook page, I'm posting up little pictures and stuff. So yeah, if you want to check them out, and you'll see the chainsaw. I broke somebody's window. I've got a video coming out about that. So I managed to get that sorted. One of the things that just always makes me chuckle is, I don't know if it's the culture, but I think sometimes people just can't see when an accident is an accident, and also that accidents do happen. So I broke this chap's window. It was a next door neighbour actually, and I've talked about it in a video, but I hit a stone. I didn't see the stone, of course, because you never see him, do you? You'd never purposely hit a stone with a mower anyway. So I watched it fly from out under the mower, flew through the air, smashed his window. We got it sorted, but when I was fixing it, so I paid for the glass. Somebody that he knows fitted the window. I paid him to do it, and he come out and he wasn't rude and he wasn't shitty, but he said, "Can't you get a guard for something like that?" And I'm thinking whether he thinks like a strimmer guard. I says, "Well, no." I said, "It's a lawnmower." I says, "There's no such thing as a guard." He says, "Well, what happens if that would have hit me as I'm a child?" And I'm like, "Well, it's exactly the same as crossing the road or joining the motorway or driving your car." I says, "There's any number of these little freak accidents that could happen, shouldn't happen." I says, "It's just one of them." I says, it happens. So it was sorted and he's been fine about it. But I must admit, since then, I have been very, very cautious. One of the things that I might do, and I'm looking at them at the moment, is I might buy them for next season. I might get a set of, so they're called stump grinding guards, and what they are, it's like a curtain, and it's typically, normally they're on like a little bit of a heavy duty. Basically the idea is when you stump grinding, you put them around it, and I think they're about 4 foot high, and it's got like that fabric that, if something hits it, it's not going to do any damage. And I'm very, very tempted to buy a set of them. I've seen people where they've improvised things. I've seen, what have we got? Somebody in my area, he uses a clothes rail, so he got a couple of them, but he's got a lot bigger van than I have, and it's like clothes rails, what they have in like charity shops, and they're on like wheels and casters. And he uses them, and he hangs bed sheets over. And he said every time he does a job with that he worries about, he'll put them up. And I haven't got the room for something like that. But I'm tempted, or well, I should say, I am actually going to end up buying them. It's something to put up to protect the window. I was doing a job the other day, and this customer, she had it was a block paved, and there's weeds coming up through it, so obviously, first thing you hit it with a strimmer, don't you? So I put the wheelie bin over the patio door to protect it, and I was just strimming, and it was literally, low revs, like low cordless revs, should I say, taking my time, back to the window, so to speak, very, very slow. And I'd already blown the area off, so there shouldn't have been anything. Anyway, I hit something, and it's one of them where you just hit it right, and I heard it hitting a wheelie bin, and it was one of them where she didn't ask me to do it. I did it as part of the maintenance to keep the property nice, and it made a right crack on the bin, and I'll be honest with you, I proper crap my pants. I thought, hey, there's another one here. It didn't do any damage, but like I said, I am tempted to get something like that. Even if you do it, yes, it's risky strimming on blocks anyway, but there's lawns that I do where there's a risk of stones all the time because they've got gravel around it. I did a lawn the other day, and I had to take a no end of stones off. The daughter, she's like daughter's like a little kid sort of thing, like 2 years old, and she'd put like a ring of stones everywhere, and I had to sort of thingy. So again, I'm thinking about getting something like that can just be folded up and put in the van. Yeah, with having the Artesia mower, I use the Ego every so often, but I have got room now. I used to take 2 mowers everywhere. I only take 1, so I have got room to keep something like that in there permanent. But it's just one of them. The thing is, it's that glass that broke cost me £200. Those guards are 160. So, like I said, I think next season I am going to look at purchasing something like that. So there's been no real problems. I've got another house clearance, so one of the things I'm doing now is I used to take my time with him, the customer. I don't know what's changed, but last time it was the ones I did earlier. The customer was like, the solicitor was like, "Luke, take your time with it," but now they're getting done. The first one was done, and they wanted it doing a lot quicker than I thought. But luckily for me, I'd pulled my finger out and got it done. Uh, so what I'm going to try and do now with every house clearance is basically try and just smash it off as quick as possible. Smash it off quick as possible. One of the things as well is once the property is cleared, it goes on to insurance visits. So every 4 weeks or every fortnight, up to the solicitor, I basically go and inspect the property. So in all fairness, it's in my best favour to get the property cleared as quickly as possible, because while I'm there clearing it, that classes as a visit. So if it takes me, a month or 6 weeks to clear a property, I'm missing out on two, or one, whatever, 1 payments of the insurance. So in reality, it's going to be better for me to get it done as quickly as possible. And I've got a good system now. So what I use is I just use a skip. I go in, check the property over, go through everything, dispose of all the personal items. This is like house talk now, isn't it? House clearance chat. But it might be helpful if ever you have to do it. So I go in, clear all the personal items, bag it all up. I then just normally put that into one room or to one side. I will get the charities in. The charities come, take what they want. For me, the aim is to try and give everything a second life, basically. So charities come, they'll take the white goods, couches if they've got fire labels on, and anything, and it'll take, literally, they've got free pick of the whole property. And then unfortunately what's left, if it is that it's not got fire labels, if it is that it's not been packed, it's not recent, basically if it's, can't be given away, it has to be thrown away, unfortunately. But typically, the majority of the stuff, there's not much left, to be fair. So again, it just goes into a skip. And I find it's very, very efficient. You can get a lot of stuff into one of the big skips. The last one I did on my own, and it sounds sad, but I found it quicker to do it on my own than with somebody helping me, because I think sometimes you get a bit distracted by talking to each other, but when you're on your Todd, you're sort of, right, I've got to do this, and then you start thinking out of the box, and you get it done quicker, I find. So yeah, we're moving on to that now. So I've had another one come in, so she rung me up and said, "How are we cracking on with this one?" I said, "I've nearly done it." She said, "Brilliant, I've got another one for you." So that would actually be, I think this is my 4th one this year. So yeah, I'm super happy about that. Like I said, the thing with the house clearances, I don't want them. Technically, they are a part of my income. Technically, she's my biggest customer. Technically, she's probably more than 20% of my turnover, but I try not to think of as that, because these are not guaranteed. If she retires, if she leaves, anything, it could stop it completely. This is why I'm not investing. Originally, I was thinking about buying a bigger van to help with the house clearances. So move over to, something a little bit bigger, like a relay sized or one of them MAN TG vans. But then that would be brilliant for stuff like that. But it won't, because I don't take waste away. I dispose all on site. And I think sometimes you've got to look at the bigger picture. You have. So yeah, like I said, I keep it. I think one of the things I will do next season is get a bigger trailer. And then that could be used for that in correlation with a 4-track. But in reality, I think sometimes the lane that you're in, you stick in it for a reason, let's just say. So yeah, we'll have to see on that. So yeah, that's got half an hour talking about 2 weeks worth of thing, and I'm sure there's other stuff that's gone on, but that's all the bullet points really. So I'll catch you up on Facebook. So I can't remember the comment fully, but there was a chap where he said on one of the videos that basically everything seems to be going online now when it comes to advertising. but he himself is not online. Now, I'm going to do a video at the end of the season showing how much extra I have earned from Facebook. So I'll sort of set the ground for it now. So this is Facebook purely in the sense that I've created a Facebook page and I have shared posts on this Facebook page to the community groups in my local area. What I'm doing is I'm keeping tabs of leads, and I'm keeping tabs of leads that have then gone on to produce work. So I'm going to do at the end, and I might see if Tom wants to do something along the same lines, because he built his he built his business off Facebook. So it might be a little bit of a crossover Facebook special where we both talk about it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's made me thousands, but it's made me hundreds, and all I've done is sat on my bum and done it. There's been no going out and knocking doors, and there's been nothing really. So I'll go through a little bit of sort of stuff, a little bit about Facebook now from what I've found. So I think with whatever form of advertising you're going to do, you're going to get time wasters. Now, I haven't had time wasters, but I think there's plenty of people out there that just want a price. I think as well there's plenty of people out there that they will see something and it's like the shiny syndrome, where they'll see it and they go, oh yeah, I like look at that, and then they'll pull the trigger. And because on Facebook it's so easy, where they just click, get in touch, and it brings them straight through to WhatsApp, and then all they're going to do is say how much or I'm interested. But unfortunately for us, that then puts us down the route of basically starting to form a quote for them. And then what happens for them is they sort of, realise, or money, or they'll say to the husband, oh yeah, I'm going to get the gutters done, I'm going to get my lawn done, I'm going to get my garden done. Oh no, I'll do that. And then that's it. And then if you're lucky, they'll message and say we're not interested, or we found some, we don't need it anymore. Or if you're unlucky, they'll just leave you on red, and then you'll never hear off them again. So I think once you get past the fact that that is going to happen, it makes it a lot easier. So I've been sharing posts, so I think for 3 weeks continuous every Sunday. I went around and I found all of the local groups on my Facebook, and I joined them all on my business page. So it's like spotted such and such, such and such local, such and such residence page. You get what I mean? So find all these pages. I think what you need to do is, when you're working, try and get the best before and after pictures. So what I do is where you take your first picture, take a picture of your feet, and or zoom out and take a picture of, if you can, landmarks. So basically, when you take your after picture, you can then place yourself back in that exact same position. So if people are flicking left and right quickly, it's not jumping from a different view. The last thing you want is a before taken at the top of a garden, at the top of one side of the gutter, and then you take the after from the other side, because it's completely different. I think as well, try and concentrate your before and afters on them absolutely banger jobs. Now don't get me wrong, a flower bed that you've spent 3 hours weeding, but the hedges need cutting, will not look as good as, say, a bit of a weedy flower bed and them hedges that have been cut. Just the same as, you might have a unicorn job where, it's an absolutely amazing, lawn transformation, but if the rest of the garden's a dump, people will look and go, well, why haven't you done that? People eat with their eyes at the end of the day. You don't want a gourmet Michelin star meal served on, a paper tray with a bit of chip wrapper underneath it, And this is the thing, I think we need to remember, that we are a premium service. And there's no harm in trying to come across like that. Now, as well, try and put a mix of pictures. So, I've got big properties, I've got small properties. I like to put a representation of all of them across the board, because sometimes people might think, you know what, this bloke only does mansions, I've only got a tiny one, he won't be interested in that. Just the same as if you know, I don't know if commercial people look differently at it, but somebody, you know, who's got, you know, a big lawn to mow, he might think, well, he won't want to do it, it's too big for him. So try and sort of appeal to both sides as best as you can, I think is important as well. I think as well, the less words you use, the better. Try and keep words to a minimum, you know. I think as well, basically what I mean is, you know what I'm like, don't put paragraphs. Put, you know, before and afters, and let the pictures do the talking, basically. That's why I like before, you know, grass cuts, because people can see that it's cut, edged and trimmed. You know, you want to try and get a picture that shows an edged lawn, a mowed lawn and a clear patio. I say with gutters are the easiest, because, you know, it's up in the air, so there's very other little background chatter in amongst the picture. And if it's a white gutter, it makes for a brilliant, as I said, before and after. So I'd sort of try and concentrate on that if you can. So I keep sharing the posts around, and so far I think I've gotten about 300, 400 quid's worth of work, basically off the back of just sitting here, creating posts and sending them out. I try and put some content up on the Facebook page, so at least, I would say, at least once a week. And it's weird, I used to be very not anti-Facebook to the point that I'd, you know, argue over it. But I just never used to post on social media. But now I try and put a post up, so on the Gardener's Shed pod page, and on my personal business page, I try and put a post up at least once a week, just showing, you know, a little bit of a behind the scene with the garden, and try and not spin it. But so for me, I took a picture of the chainsaw, you know, on the you know, a tree, and that's for the Gardener's Shed pod. You know, we bought this for the business, you know, we just used this new tool, so it's a little bit of brand promotion in air quotes, even though still, you know, they'll never be like, oh, thank you for that. You know, it's more so behind the scenes for you guys, but also that picture is a behind the scenes for the business, where you can show that customer that, you know, we've upgraded to a cordless chainsaw. You know, it's quiet, it's noise free, you know, whatever. It's whatever picture, you know, whatever picture you put up with, you can spin it different ways to customers. And I think sometimes people like that sort of before and after. You know, it's like I did a picture, I don't think I'll put it on the page. I think people need to know stuff, but people don't need to know too much. But, you know, I did a hedge reduction the other day, and I used like £4 worth of kit, and it was all laid out at the back of the van. But maybe something like that, you know, showing that, not so much the monetary value, but, you know, as a business, we've made the swap to cordless, so it makes for a more pleasant working environment for myself, and also for you, where we will not interrupt your day or your neighbours. Like I said, I think, yes, before and afters are good, but people like to see, you know, the behind the scenes sort of stuff, and that, hey, this business cares, basically, but not too much, you know. You know, it's that fine sort of balance all the time. So yeah, I've been very, very happy with how the Facebook side's going. The plans for it next season is that I want to, so for the rest of this year, it's probably gutters. Keep pushing the gutters out. I've got a big gutter clearing day coming up in the start of November, and I'm going to try and schedule another one towards the end of November. So again, I'll be pushing slots for that, seeing if people need that. And then I think next season I'm going to do some posts, probably not once, well, probably once a week to my page, but probably once every couple of weeks, just share it out, that if people need any work doing. Now, for me, I'm very picky with what work I want to be doing. I don't want to be weeding borders or ripping clods of grass out of borders in the freezing weather, but I don't mind cutting stuff back and hedge reductions, or shrub reductions or anything like that. So again, we'll be pushing stuff like that out. And then at the start of the season, it's just going to be grass. That's all I'm going to be advertising. It's going to be basically, do you need your grass cutting? I've been taking pictures all year of before and afters of grass or striped lawns, and then that's what I'm going to be passing over next season. So sharing them. And as well, put the content up now, because you've got it there and it's a permanent reminder on your Facebook, and you can go back through it and just share that post. So go back through, share that post. So like I said, I think Facebook, it is a powerful tool, and it can be a powerful tool. I've noticed that, the physical media is going, newspapers are drying up around me. I think there used to be, when I first started, there was 3 papers, there's only 1 now. So like I said, they are going, they are sort of disappearing. What other forms of advertising is there now, really? There's the cheap and cheerful, but even then, even community notice boards I've noticed going. I've even noticed now that community notice boards, they are literally for the community, so nobody from the community can post on it, but people who work for the community can put posts up on it. But then again, there's Facebook groups, and actually the Facebook groups don't seem to mind having these posts put on them. So like I said, I would always say, go for whatever's easiest, and so far Facebook is proving very, very easy and also very rewarding. I think in life there's nothing worse than doing anything and not getting a return back off it. There's nothing worse than, creating leaflets and creating Facebook posts and hearing nothing back off them. But yeah, I've been very, very happy with this, very, very happy with the sort of, the return from it. Winter time, I've got some work booked in, I've got some other bits and bobs. We're getting a camper van sorted, so that's going to be ready for winter. And then I think it's going to be a mix of working. So what I'm going to try and do is get all of my work booked into, so January and February, I want to try and do the first week, second week, basically book out a couple of weeks of work, so get all the 4 weekly visits done then, and then we're going to be then shooting off for a couple of weeks and then coming back. I've got a couple of commercial jobs this week where I'm using a moss brush, so I'll probably do a video on that. I don't use the moss much. This is the thing as well, I think it's very, very hard sometimes. Don't be afraid to have a tool and it doesn't get used all the time. That's the only way I can say. What I mean by that is I bought a chipper. I don't use it every week, I don't use it every month, but I'll use it on jobs. And how I see it is, if you buy the right equipment, it's not going to break after a year. You're going to have it for a long time. Same with a moss brush. I think I've used it 2 or 3 times this season. So in reality, it's nowhere near paid for itself. But it's one of them jobs, tools that when I come to use it, I'm always glad I've got it. I keep looking at those billy goat vacs, but then I hear good and I hear bad about it, so I'm not too sure about that. Definitely something like that would come in handy for some of the properties that I've got. But again, it's just one of them really. So I'll leave this video here now. As usual guys, keep on gardening and have a good day.